The war was almost lost. Then they called in the humans. The Zephyrian High Council chamber buzzed with desperate voices as Admiral Kextar slammed his four-armed fist onto the crystalline table. His blue-scaled face showed the exhaustion that had become common among all council members over the past 3 cycles. "We have lost another 12 systems to the Vrak Dominion," he announced, his voice heavy with defeat. "Our fleets are scattered. Our allies have either fallen or retreated to their home worlds. The Dominion now controls 60% of known space." Councilmember Velana, her silver wings trembling with age and stress, looked up from her datapad. "What about the Thrakian battle groups? Surely their legendary warriors can help us push back?" Admiral Kextar shook his head slowly. The Thrakians fought bravely at the Battle of Nexus Prime. Their entire warrior caste was wiped out in a single engagement. The survivors have retreated to their sacred moon and declared they will defend it to the last breath, but they will not venture out again. The silence that followed was deafening. For 3 years, the Galactic Alliance had been fighting against the Vrak Dominion, a species of ruthless conquerors who seemed to appear from beyond the galactic rim. The Vrak were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were massive, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armored skin that could deflect most energy weapons. Their ships were built like fortresses, and their tactics were brutal but effective. "What about the Crystalline Collective?" asked another council member, his voice barely above a whisper. "Gone," Kextar replied flatly. The Vrak learned to disrupt their hive mind communications. Without their telepathic coordination, the crystalline ships became sitting targets. The entire collective was destroyed at the Battle of Sigma Station. Velana stood up, her ancient bones creaking. "Then, we must consider the unthinkable. We need to contact species that have not yet joined the Alliance." "Who is left?" Kextar asked. "We have reached out to every known civilization. The peaceful ones lack military strength, and the aggressive ones have either joined the Vrak or been destroyed by them." "Not everyone," said a quiet voice from the corner of the chamber. All eyes turned to Intelligence Officer Mordun, a small, gray-skinned being who rarely spoke during council meetings. His large black eyes seemed to glow with an unusual intensity. "Speak," commanded Velana. Mordun stepped forward, clutching a small data device. "There is one species we have not contacted. They are located in a small spiral arm of the galaxy that most consider insignificant. Their technology appears primitive compared to ours, but what?" Kextar demanded. "But they have been fighting wars among themselves for their entire recorded history. They call themselves humans, and they inhabit a world they call Earth." The council members exchanged glances. Several made dismissive gestures with their appendages. "Primitive warriors cannot help us against the Vrak," scoffed one council member. "We need advanced technology and superior firepower." Mordun activated his device, projecting a holographic display above the table. "With respect, council members, I have been studying these humans for some time. They may be primitive by our standards, but they possess something that no other species in the galaxy has demonstrated." "And what is that?" asked Velana. "They refuse to surrender, even when defeat is certain. In their history, there are countless examples of small human forces defeating much larger armies through pure determination and creative tactics. They have a saying, 'It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.'" Admiral Kextar leaned back in his chair. "Show us more." The holographic display changed, showing various scenes from human history. Here, at a place called Thermopylae, 300 human warriors held off an army of hundreds of thousands for 3 days. Here, at a place called Stalingrad, humans fought for every building, every room, against an enemy with superior technology and numbers. They eventually won. "These are ancient examples," another council member protested. "What about their recent capabilities?" Mordun smiled, an expression that looked strange on his usually serious face. "That is where it becomes truly interesting. These humans have something they call nuclear weapons. They built devices capable of destroying entire cities, and then, they pointed them at each other for decades without using them. They called it mutually assured destruction, and it kept peace among their major powers for generations.
They threatened to destroy their own planet? Valana asked in amazement.
Yes, and they meant it. But, more importantly, they have been preparing for space warfare for decades through what they call science fiction. They have imagined every possible type of space battle, every possible alien invasion scenario, and they have developed theoretical responses to all of them. The hologram shifted again, showing human space programs and military exercises. Their current technology is primitive, but they are advancing rapidly.
More importantly, they have a mindset that we have lost. They see every problem as something to be solved, every enemy as something to be defeated.
They do not accept the concept of impossible.
Admiral Kekstar stood up and walked closer to the hologram. You are suggesting we contact a species that has never fought in space, has never encountered alien life, and has technology centuries behind our own?
Yes, Mordun replied without hesitation. Because everyone else has tried to fight the Vrak using conventional tactics and superior technology. It has not worked. The Vrak are too strong, too numerous, and too well armored for conventional warfare.
And you think these humans can do better? I think these humans will find a way to do better. It is what they do. The council chamber fell silent again as the members considered this proposal. The idea seemed insane, but then, again, everything they had tried so far had failed. What exactly are you proposing? Asked Valana. Mordun took a deep breath.
I propose we send a diplomatic mission to Earth.
We offer them our technology and ask for their help.
We give them our ships, our weapons, our knowledge of the Vrak, and we let them figure out how to use it all.
And what makes you think they will help us? They do not even know we exist. Because, Mordun said with certainty, humans have another trait that is unique in the galaxy. They cannot stand to see bullies win.
If we tell them that the Vrak are conquering and enslaving entire civilizations, they will want to stop it.
It is simply who they are. Admiral Kekstar looked around the chamber at the faces of the council members.
He saw desperation, exhaustion, and fear, but also a growing spark of something that had been absent for months: hope. How long would it take to reach Earth? He asked. 2 weeks with our fastest diplomatic vessel, Mordun replied. And how long do we have before the Vrak reach our core systems?
Intelligence estimates 4 weeks at their current rate of advance. Kekstar nodded slowly.
That gives us 2 weeks to find these humans and 2 weeks to see if they can help us.
Not much time. It is enough, Mordun said firmly. Humans excel under pressure. The tighter the deadline, the more creative they become.
Valana stood up again, her decision made.
Very well. Mordun, you will lead the diplomatic mission to Earth.
Take whatever ships and personnel you need. The rest of us will coordinate our remaining fleets for a final defensive stand at the Antares system.
And if these humans cannot help us, asked one council member.
Then, we will die fighting, Valana replied. But, at least we will die knowing we tried everything. As the council session ended and the members dispersed to their various duties, Admiral Kekstar remained behind with Mordun. Are you certain about this? He asked quietly.
Mordun looked at the data still scrolling across his device. Stories of human courage, human ingenuity, human refusal to accept defeat.
Admiral, I have studied warfare across 100 different species. I have analyzed the tactics and strategies of the greatest military minds in galactic history. And I have never seen anything like what humans do when their backs are against the wall.
Which is? They stop fighting fair.
3 days later, the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Call departed from the Zephyrian capital world, carrying a crew of 12 and the hopes of an entire galaxy. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, heading toward a small, blue world in an unremarkable solar system, none of the crew could imagine how completely their universe was about to change. In the ship's data banks were detailed files on human history, human psychology, and human military doctrine.
There were also complete schematics of Vrak ships, weapons, and tactics. Everything the humans would need to understand what they were facing.
What the databanks did not contain, because no Galactic Alliance species truly understood it, was the full implications of humanity's greatest strength, their absolute refusal to play by anyone else's rules. The war was indeed almost lost. But they had called in the humans. And humans had a reputation for turning almost lost into completely won in ways that no one else could predict or prevent. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's apex predators had spent millennia fighting each other instead of being satisfied with dominating their own planet. They had been practicing. The war was almost lost then, they called in the humans. General Sarah Martinez was having a perfectly normal Tuesday morning at NORAD when her coffee mug started floating 3 inches above her desk. She blinked twice, rubbed her eyes, and watched as every piece of loose paper in her office began drifting upward in slow motion. "What the hell?" she muttered, reaching for her communication device just as the biggest spaceship she had ever imagined materialized outside her window, blocking out the sun like a metallic eclipse. The emergency klaxons began blaring throughout the facility as her aide, Lieutenant Colonel Johnson, burst through her door. "General, we have a situation. Unidentified aircraft, no, scratch that, unidentified spacecraft has appeared over 16 major cities worldwide simultaneously." "Hostile intent?" Martinez asked, her military training kicking in as she watched small shuttle craft detach from the massive vessel outside. "Unknown. They're broadcasting on all frequencies in what sounds like, well, it sounds like they're trying to speak English, but with a really weird accent." Within 30 minutes, the most surreal first contact in human history was taking place in the NORAD briefing room. The alien calling himself Mordun looked like a cross between a gray alien from old UFO stories and a wise grandfather, if grandfathers had huge black eyes, and spoke with a slight lisp. "General Martinez," Mordun said, his universal translator struggling with human idioms, "I must apologize for the dramatic entrance, but time is extremely short." "You're apologizing for showing up in spaceships?" General Martinez asked, still trying to process that she was having a conversation with an extraterrestrial being. Most species would probably lead with, "Take me to your leader." "We already did that," Mordun replied with what might have been a smile. "We contacted all of your major governments simultaneously. However, our intelligence suggests that when dealing with humans, it is often more effective to speak directly with military leaders." "Why?" "Because politicians will debate and form committees. Military leaders will ask 2 questions. What is the threat, and how do we stop it?" Martinez found herself liking this alien already. "Okay, I'm listening. What's the threat?" Mordun activated a holographic projector that made every piece of human technology in the room look like stone tools. The air above the conference table filled with images of massive, dark ships and armored creatures that looked like nightmares come to life. 3 galactic cycles ago, a species called the Vrak emerged from beyond our galactic rim. They are conquerors, General Martinez. They do not negotiate, they do not coexist, they simply destroy and consume. They have already conquered or destroyed 87 civilizations. "How many people?" Martinez asked quietly. "Excuse me? How many people have they killed?" Mordun was quiet for a moment. "Current estimates suggest approximately 400 billion sentient beings." The briefing room fell absolutely silent. Martinez felt a cold anger building in her chest, the same feeling she had experienced when she first learned about genocide in her history classes. "And they're heading this way? The Galactic Alliance has been fighting them for 3 of your years. We have lost every major engagement. Our last defensive line will fall in approximately 4 weeks. After that, they will have access to our star charts, including the location of Earth." Lieutenant Colonel Johnson leaned forward. "Why are you telling us this? No offense, but if your advanced civilizations can't stop them, what can we possibly do?" Mordun's large eyes seemed to brighten. "That, Colonel Johnson, is precisely why we are here. Every civilization that has faced the Vrak has tried to fight them using conventional space warfare. Superior technology, larger fleets, better shields and weapons. They have all failed because the Vrak have superior technology, larger fleets, and better shields and weapons. So we need a different approach," Martinez said. "Exactly. We need someone who does not think like us. Someone who has never been taught that certain things are impossible in space warfare.
Someone who has been preparing for this fight without knowing it. What do you mean, preparing for it?
Mordun activated another hologram, this one showing scenes from human movies and television.
Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Independence Day, Ender's Game.
For decades, your species has been imagining space warfare scenarios and developing theoretical solutions to them. You have created more space battle tactics in your fiction than most species develop in millennia of actual warfare.
Those are just movies, Johnson protested. Are they? Let me ask you something, Colonel. If alien ships appeared over your cities tomorrow and began destroying them, what would be the first thing your military would do? Johnson thought for a moment. We'd hit them with everything we have. Nuclear weapons, fighter jets, ground-to-air missiles. And, if that didn't work? We'd adapt. Try different approaches. Maybe computer viruses, or ramming attacks, or... Johnson stopped mid-sentence as he realized what he was saying.
Exactly, Mordun said. You have been mentally rehearsing unconventional warfare against technologically superior aliens for your entire lives. When the Crystalline Collective faced the Vrak, they tried to outthink them using telepathic coordination. When the Thrakians faced them, they tried to outfight them using warrior strength and honor.
Both approaches failed because they played to the Vrak's strengths. What are the Vrak's weaknesses? Martinez asked.
That is what we hope you can tell us, Mordun replied.
We have brought complete intelligence files on their ships, weapons, tactics, and biology. We have also brought gifts.
Gifts?
Technology.
Specifically, we would like to upgrade a small number of your military vessels with our propulsion systems, weapons, and defensive shields.
Then, we would like to see what you do with them. You're offering to give us starships? We are offering to turn your existing military vessels into starships.
We believe that human tactics, combined with Galactic Alliance technology, might achieve what neither has accomplished alone. General Martinez stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the massive alien vessel that was still hovering silently outside.
How many ships are you talking about?
We can upgrade approximately 50 of your largest warships and several hundred of your fighter aircraft.
And, in exchange? You help us fight the Vrak. That's it? No planetary tribute, no demands for resources, no colonization rights?
General Martinez, Mordun said softly, we are not conquerors.
We are teachers and explorers and philosophers.
We have spent 10,000 years building a civilization based on knowledge and cooperation. If we wanted to conquer Earth, we could have done it without making contact. We are here because we need help from the only species in the galaxy that seems to specialize in winning impossible fights.
Martinez turned back to face the alien diplomat. How long do we have to decide? The upgrades will take 1 week. Training your crews will take another week. That leaves 2 weeks to reach the battlefield. And, what exactly is our objective?
Stop the Vrak advance at the Antares system.
Protect what remains of the Galactic Alliance. Save billions of lives.
No pressure, Lieutenant Colonel Johnson muttered.
Mordun's head tilted slightly.
Actually, Colonel, pressure is exactly what we are hoping for. Our research indicates that humans perform best under extreme pressure. The more desperate the situation, the more creative and determined you become.
Martinez walked back to the table and looked at the holographic displays showing Vrak forces.
The enemy ships were enormous, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons.
Their troops looked like walking tanks.
Everything about them screamed overwhelming superiority. You know what these bastards remind me of, she said finally.
What? Mordun asked.
Every enemy we've ever faced who thought they were unbeatable.
The British in 1776. The Nazis in 1944.
Every bully who ever picked a fight thinking they were too strong to lose. She looked around the room at her officers, seeing the same expression on every face that she was feeling, controlled anger mixed with grim determination. Mordun, she said, I can't speak for our government, but I can speak for our military. You give us those upgrades, and we'll give you a fight that these wrack bastards will never forget.
You accept our proposal?
Hell yes, we accept.
But I want to modify the terms. Mordun looked concerned. How? You said you wanted to see what we do with your technology.
Well, we're going to show you. But when this is over, when we've kicked these wrack sons of bitches back to whatever hole they crawled out of, humanity wants a seat at your Galactic Alliance table.
That can certainly be arranged.
And we want full technology sharing agreements with all member species.
Also acceptable.
And we want to make sure this never happens again. Any species that starts conquering and enslaving others gets stopped before they become a threat to the whole galaxy.
Mordun's expression shifted to something that might have been amazement. You are already thinking beyond just this war.
Damn right we are.
You said these wrack have killed 400 billion people? That's not happening again. Not on our watch.
General, Mordun said quietly, I think we may have chosen the right species to ask for help.
Within hours, the largest mobilization in human history was underway.
50 of Earth's most advanced warships began receiving upgrades that would have seemed like magic just days before.
Fighter pilots trained on alien weapon systems. Naval crews learned to operate faster than light drives.
And, in strategy rooms around the world, human military minds began analyzing wrack tactics and developing counters that no galactic civilization had ever considered. Because humans had one advantage that no other species possessed, they had been the apex predators on their own world for thousands of years, and they had spent that entire time learning how to kill things that were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than they were. The wrack were about to learn why that was a problem. The war was almost lost then, they called in the humans.
Admiral Kekstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing despair. The Antares system defense was collapsing faster than his worst projections.
48 hours ago, they had 112 ships defending the system. Now they were down to 37, and the wrack were pressing their advantage with ruthless efficiency.
Admiral, his communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from the outer system perimeter. Unknown vessels approaching. Wrack reinforcements? Kekstar asked wearily. No, sir. The signal identifies them as Terran Defense Force? Kekstar's 4 hearts nearly stopped beating. Human ships?
Yes, sir. 50 capital ships and what appears to be 300 smaller vessels.
Put me in contact with their commanding officer immediately.
The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human female in what appeared to be their military uniform. She had graying hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of expression that suggested she had never backed down from a fight in her entire life.
This is Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Terran Defense Force. You must be Admiral Kekstar.
Sorry we're late to the party, but we had to stop and pick up a few things along the way. Admiral Martinez, your timing is excellent, but I must warn you that the situation is desperate. The wrack have superior numbers and firepower. We have lost nearly 2/3 of our fleet.
We saw the engagement data that Mordun transmitted, Martinez replied.
We also saw what these wrack bastards did to the Crystalline Collective and the Thracians.
That was a mistake. I do not understand.
You will.
All Galactic Alliance ships, this is Admiral Martinez. We're going to need you to pull back to defensive positions around the planet.
What we're about to do is going to get a little crazy, and we don't want any friendly fire incidents.
Kekstar was confused but ordered his remaining ships to fall back.
On his tactical display, he watched as the human fleet split into smaller groups and began moving toward the wrack forces using flight patterns he had never seen before. Admiral Martinez, he called out, your ships are not maintaining formation. The wrack will be able to isolate and destroy individual groups. That's the idea, Martinez replied with what humans called a grin. First rule of fighting something bigger than you, don't fight fair. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years.
The human ships moved like wolves hunting a herd of buffalo.
Instead of engaging the Vrak in the traditional line of battle formation that every galactic civilization used, they split into small packs and attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Their movements were unpredictable, chaotic, and completely effective. The first Vrak ship to fall victim to human tactics was the heavy cruiser Bone Crusher. 3 human destroyers approached it from different vectors, firing continuously and, then, veering away before the Vrak could return effective fire. The cruiser tried to follow one of the destroyers, presenting its flank to the other 2, who promptly launched every missile they had directly into the ship's engine section. "How did they know where to hit us?" the Vrak commander demanded as his ship began losing power. He never got an answer because a human fighter wing chose that moment to demonstrate another innovation: coordinated nuclear ramming attacks. Admiral Kekstar watched in amazement as 12 human fighter craft loaded with nuclear warheads dove directly into the damaged cruiser's hull. The explosion that followed was visible from the other side of the solar system. "Admiral Martinez," Kekstar called out, "your fighters just committed suicide to destroy one enemy ship." "Those weren't crewed fighters," Martinez replied calmly. "We removed the pilots and installed AI guidance systems. Humans have been building guided missiles for over a century. We just scaled up the concept." Across the battlefield, human tactics that defied every principle of civilized warfare were being deployed with devastating effect. Ships would fire all their weapons and, then, retreat behind asteroids, only to emerge from completely different positions. Fighters would ram enemy vessels at high speed, not to destroy them but to attach magnetic charges that would explode later. Human ships would even fire on their own damaged vessels to prevent them from being captured, something no other species had ever considered doing. But it was the human capital ships that truly shocked the galaxy. The Terran battleship Leviathan found itself facing off against 3 Vrak heavy cruisers simultaneously. Instead of trying to outgun them, which would have been impossible, the human ship did something unprecedented. It rammed one of the enemy vessels at full speed while firing every weapon it had into the other 2. The impact destroyed both ships, but the Leviathan had been designed specifically for ramming attacks. Its reinforced hull absorbed the damage, and its crew continued fighting from a ship that by all galactic standards should have been dead. "Damage report," Captain Rodriguez called out from the Leviathan's bridge as sparks flew around him. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, primary engines offline, but secondary engines are operational," his tactical officer reported. "Weapons systems at 60%. Good enough. Find us another target." "Sir, we're supposed to withdraw when damage reaches this level." "Says who? We can still fight, so we keep fighting." This attitude was being demonstrated across the entire human fleet. Ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting. Crews that should have surrendered kept coming up with new ways to hurt the enemy. Human vessels would use their own damaged sections as improvised weapons, launching pieces of debris at enemy ships with surgical precision. The Vrak, who had conquered 87 civilizations using tactics based on overwhelming force and technological superiority, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to acknowledge that they were outgunned. "Report," demanded Vrak Fleet Commander Thaktar as his flagship shuddered under human weapons fire. "We have destroyed 14 human vessels," his tactical officer reported, "but they have destroyed 31 of ours." "How is that possible? We outnumber them 3 to 1. They are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. They seem to view their own ships as expendable weapons rather than platforms to be preserved." "What do you mean?" "Sir, a human destroyer just used its own warp core explosion to destroy 2 of our cruisers. The crew deliberately overloaded their reactor and rammed our ships." Thaktar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "They are committing suicide." "No sir, they evacuated the crew to escape pods first. They are sacrificing their ships but preserving their personnel." "Why would they do that?" "Unknown, sir, but it is extremely effective." Meanwhile, Admiral Martinez was demonstrating why humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years instead of being content to rule their own planet. She was coordinating a battle involving 350 ships across an area of space larger than most solar systems, and she was doing it like a conductor leading an orchestra. "Destroyer Group 7, I need you to draw fire away from the Yorktown. Fighter Wings 12 through 15,
hit that wrack dreadnought's portside while it's distracted. Battleship Group 3, prepare for a coordinated ram attack on my signal. Admiral, her tactical officer called out, the wrack are trying to retreat to hyperspace. Like hell they are, Martinez replied. All ships, emergency acceleration. We're going to stop them from running. What followed was perhaps the most audacious military maneuver in galactic history. The human fleet, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, pursued the retreating wrack forces and engaged them in running battles across 3 star systems. Human ships would drop out of hyperspace ahead of the wrack fleet, launch hit-and-run attacks, and then jump away before the enemy could respond effectively. By the time the wrack finally escaped human space, they had lost over half their fleet and gained a healthy respect for the small blue planet that produced such terrifying warriors. Admiral Kekstar met with Admiral Martinez aboard the human flagship 3 days after the battle ended. Admiral Martinez, he said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I want to thank you for what you have accomplished here. We're not done yet, Martinez replied. This was just the opening round. I do not understand. Admiral, these wrack have been conquering civilizations for 3 years. They've killed hundreds of billions of people. Did you really think we were going to stop after one battle? What are you proposing? We're going to hunt them down and finish this war. But first, we need to talk to your Galactic Alliance about some changes. Changes? Yeah. See, humans have this thing about bullies. We really don't like them. And we especially don't like bullies who think they're too tough to be stopped. Admiral Martinez activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. The way we see it, the galaxy has been playing defense against these wrack for 3 years. That's not working. Time to go on offense. You want to attack the wrack in their home territory? We want to end this war in a way that makes sure it never happens again. The wrack need to learn that conquest and genocide come with a price. And every other potential threat in the galaxy needs to learn that the Galactic Alliance now has some new members who take this stuff personally. Kekstar looked at the human admiral with a mixture of admiration and concern. Admiral Martinez, what you are proposing would require a fundamental change in how the Alliance approaches warfare. Good. Because your old approach wasn't working. Look, Admiral, we appreciate the technology upgrades and we're grateful for the opportunity to help. But humans don't do things halfway. When we commit to a fight, we finish it. And how exactly do you propose to finish this war? Admiral Martinez's expression shifted to something that would have made the wrack fleets flee in terror if they could have seen it. We're going to teach the galaxy what humans do to bullies who pick on our friends. 6 months later, the wrack Dominion formally surrendered after human-led forces systematically dismantled their entire military infrastructure. The surrender ceremony was held on Earth, where representatives from 87 liberated civilizations came to thank the species that had refused to let evil win. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as supplicants or junior members, but as the civilization that had ended the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. And everyone agreed that the galaxy was much safer with humans in it. Even if they were absolutely terrifying when they got angry.